So this is Pipedrive. And what is Pipedrive? It's a sales CRM software. Now, some of you may or may not know what sales CRM is, but for those of you who don't, let's say, you sell something, right? And there are steps that go into the sales process and likely the relationship after the sale is closed as well. And managing all of these relationships, discussions, and activities of your whole sales team can get very disorganized and overwhelming if you're not tracking it somewhat intelligently. So this is your sales process visualized into those different steps. You can customize this however you want, and we'll get into that a little bit more later. But these tiles here are representing deals or discussions, potential sales that you have with your leads. These aren't your contacts, these are deals that are related to your contacts, and I'll explain a bit more of that later. But so you may notice these colored icons over here, and how the colored icons are actually prioritized at the very top of this list. This is because the moment you log in, Pipedrive will present to you your own deals. You could view everyone's deals, or you could view one specific rep's deals, depending on your visibility. But let's just take a look at our own deals for now. And you'll see immediately that on the top of my list here, in the first stage of my pipeline, there's an activity that's overdue. So it's highlighted in red and shuffled to the top. Pipedrive's telling me this deal is the most important thing for me to be focusing on right now. Pipedrive will basically prioritize deals that are overdue or due today at the very top of your list. Next priority would be deals that have no activity scheduled for them just yet, which you could start scheduling here. These activities that we're viewing in our pipeline here can technically also be viewed in a neat little list view right here, which you can view by different activity type, as well as the different dates that they'd be due, who they're assigned to, and you can even create a custom filter to look for very specific types of activities. But so this would be a way for, let's say, Henry Higgins logs in and he looks at his own to-do list of activities that are due maybe tomorrow or this week or something like that. Just another way to approach your sales activities. But so let's say I'm going along my merry way and I actually perform this activity right here. The immediate prompt that Pipedrive will give you is actually to schedule your follow-up activity. This is fundamentally important for an activity-based selling approach. If you always have your next activity scheduled, you'll never let any opportunities fall through the cracks. So let's say I want to schedule my next call tomorrow at 5 p.m. instead. So now this deal has been deprioritized down the list since we have an activity that's scheduled for it in the future. And so let's say after we performed our activities, we can just drag and drop our deal into the next stage of our process. As time goes by, you continue moving the deal along the pipeline, eventually getting to the last stage of your process, performing your activities, and marking your deal as won. And if you want to get a little look at your previously won deals, there is a pre-made filter for it right over here. You can still go into the details of each one deal. But obviously not all deals are won, so let's say this deal here gets lost. It's here that Pipedrive wants you to define the actual reason you lost it, as this is going to eventually aggregate into your reports and you can get some intelligent insights off of that. But it's up to you under your company settings to actually specify what those lost reasons are. Again, this would require admin rights to do. But so now let's say you want to customize the specific stages of your pipeline. Just head up to this little icon right here. And this is where you can change the name as well as edit the probability and the rotting date. So the probability, just to quickly go over it, let's say there's a 50% chance that all deals in the lead-in stage are actually going to be won. So if we were to save that condition, you'll see that there is a new weighted value that's been added to this stage right here. So this gives you more accurate revenue projections, which later spill over into your forecasting and your sales reports. But going back into pipeline customization, let's talk about the rotting date really quick. So this is a neat little feature that can help you stay on your toes if you've let a deal linger without any kind of action for a certain amount of days. Now, as far as Pipedrive is concerned, those actions can be activities, they can be changing details in the actual contact page itself. Really, anything that you're doing to the actual deal will count as an action. So if you've left a deal just sitting neglected for days on end, this will notify you. But so now let's make a whole separate pipeline. And let's say we don't want this many stages. We can always just delete some of these. So now we've got 3 new stages and a whole separate pipeline. And technically, if we wanted to, we could just easily drag and drop a deal into another alternate stage. Voila! Now let's talk about how the deals, contacts, and all that is sort of organized inside of Pipedrive. Let's say we're adding a brand new deal into this pipeline. We'll call this guy Kelly Dane. And let's say he works for the Kelly Corporation. Now, technically, we could assign a deal-specific probability of how likely this deal is to be won if we think it's going to override whatever the stage probability would be. And I'll give this an expected close date of next month. And here's our new deal sitting pretty in our pipeline. There's no activity scheduled for it just yet, but we can move on to that later. And as you can see, after creating that deal, we also ended up creating an organization and a contact person. If we go into this organization's profile here, we see that it has one contact person, and here's that open deal. So technically from here, we could add new deals for different contact people, or even add new contact people to this organization, and then add deals to them later on, or even schedule activities that are specifically for this organization and not for this deal or this contact person. And so the same would be said if I went into Kelly Dane's profile here. You see that there's currently no activities planned for him because that activity that I had scheduled was on the organization. So if I were to schedule another activity, let's say a meeting for today on the contacts profile, here's the meeting here. And since he's related to that organization, that call and the meeting are on the organization view. Now, last of all, let's say I wanted to schedule an activity for that deal that's related to this organization and the contact person. We'll make that a lunch. By the way, you can also customize these different activity types. After saving this, we see that the organization has all 3 activities scheduled, one just for the organization, one that's related to the contact and the organization, and one that's related to the deal and the contact and organization. So let's go back into our deal. So by now you might be wondering, what if you want to document an additional field besides just the phone number, email, name, the defaults that Pipedrive has? You can easily do that so long as you're an admin user. So just go to Customize Fields and add any field of your liking. There are quite a few different types to choose from, such as multiple options, single option, phone number, date type fields, address type fields. But let's keep it simple and say we want to document a job title for our contact people. This always in sidebar option right here, this basically just means that it's always going to appear in this sidebar even if it's not populated as such. Otherwise, if we wanted to untick that, it doesn't show up at all, but if I wanted to edit the field, it's still possible. Now let's talk quickly about participants. These would be additional contact people that are related to this specific deal. They can be from other organizations or the same one. And so now if we were to go into Victor's profile here, we see that he's also related to the Kelly Corporation and he is listed in that deal. Moving on, over here we give you a small little overview of like the deal's age and how inactive it's been, the top activities, etc. And over here, this is the followers section. Now this is going to be kind of interesting for some of you. You can add additional followers, which would be different people that are actually in the Pipedrive account, your fellow salespeople. And so if you want to add them as a follower to this deal, any little movement that you make on this deal, such as adding a note, will send a notification over to your other Pipedrive user. So if I just switch over really quick to my regular user account here, you see that there's a notification up in the Sales Assistant. Sales Assistant is a pretty nifty little tool that will give you like suggestions of different integrations that might be useful or ways to improve your sales in general, but this is also where you'll get the notifications on items that you're following, as well as items that you own. And technically, while we're at it, I should also mention that we have notification reminder emails. You can configure what specifications matter to you when it comes to getting an email summary of all those updates. But let's go back into our deal and finish what we were doing. So you already know about followers. We'll move on to email BCC in just a moment. Aside from getting a look into what's planned in the future and what's been done in the past, obviously you can add new notes, you can add more activities, you can even attach files, and if you want, we also have a Google Drive integration, so you can just link specific Google Drive files to this. So now I can literally just import docs directly from Google Drive, as well as create a brand new doc right from Pipedrive. If you want to get into invoicing, you can click on this link here and you'll be taken to the Pipedrive Marketplace where you can find quite a few reputable invoicing providers that will integrate directly into Pipedrive. So now let's talk about our scheduler. The scheduler is a perfect way to eliminate the back and forth exchanges with a customer. You know how it goes when, Is next Tuesday a good time to talk at 3 p.m.? Oh no, that doesn't work. Well, how about next Thursday at 4 p.m.? And there's just this constant back and forth trying to figure out the best time for the both of you. Well, the scheduler is exactly the answer to that. So here I'm creating my general availability. Let's say whenever I schedule a meeting with somebody, I want them to be about an hour long. And since this is my availability, I want it to be active all the time, although you could set a configuration for that too. I want this to, let's say I'm only available between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. And that goes for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So it just saves it across the board. Now these are buffer times that you can add in. And here you can specify more on the meeting itself, like the physical location, or a Zoom link, a description, something like that. And it's here that you can also prompt which fields the customer actually fills out. You can also specify what specific type of activity that gets tracked as well as attach a personal note just for yourself. And so this would be the link that you share with your customers. You should be able to access it at any time, really. If you just go into proposed times from multiple screens within the app, you'll see it's right here. And the link is copied. Let's take a quick look at what that actually looks like. So after your customers filled out the information, we send you a confirmation email, as well as a confirmation email to the customer themselves. And so now let's talk about how to track email conversations in Pipedrive. You have a couple of different options here. With the Essentials plan, you have Smart Email BCC, which is this intelligent one email link that you can BCC to any of your email conversations, and then Pipedrive will do its best to match the name and the email to contacts that currently exist in your Pipedrive account and forward those emails to those actual contacts. You can get your Smart Email BCC in your email settings right here as well. So from your perspective, it looks like this. So look at that, we got an email. Since this contact didn't exist in Pipedrive, what happens is Pipedrive actually went and created that contact automatically for you. But we can disable that for you if you want to contact support, which you can do up here in the Help Center. Now, some of you may be wondering with Smart BCC, what do you do if the contact replies to you and you also want to get that reply documented? You would have to forward that same reply with the Smart BCC address to get that reply documented here. Now, if this method with Smart Email BCC isn't quite your cup of tea, we do have full email sync in our advanced, professional, and enterprise plans. And that email sync will support pretty much any email provider you can think of: Gmail, Yahoo, Outlook, you name it. And the benefit of that is that that's all automatically going into every one of your deals and contact persons. So the moment you log in, they've replied, you already have that reply right there in your deal as soon as you log into Pipedrive. But let's move on. So obviously a good little tip would be to configure your general availability with the scheduler and then email that link to your customers so that they can schedule a time that works best for the both of you. So now let's move on to the list view. There are multiple list views in Pipedrive. This one is for your deals, but technically, as you saw before, we have a list view of activities, as well as a list view for contact people, and a list view for those organizations. Regardless of what the view is, the functions all remain the same. You can drag across multiple different checkboxes, or just tick the specific ones you need to change any of these fields here. Or you can edit any of these fields in bulk, like let's say changing the visibility from owner and followers to the entire company. I'll explain more about visibility pretty soon here. Now let's say you want more data in here than what's automatically displayed. Just go to the little settings icon here, and you can not only remove and add other deal-related fields to the list view here, but you can even pull contact-related fields into the list view, like that job title that we made, for example. Let's say we want to have that in our deal list view, sort of summarizing everything in one place. And let's say we also want to have our organization address. So the only person whose job title we documented was this guy. But we can rearrange these however we want to, expand their sizes, pretty much just like a spreadsheet. Now let's talk a bit about filters. Filters will be a really good way of narrowing down your data as it starts to really accumulate and get a little daunting to manage. Pipedrive already comes with some pre-made filters, such as the owner filters, because deals, contacts, organizations, activities, those all have specific owners. And so from here I can see in the list view, or the pipeline view for that matter, as you saw before, you can narrow down who owns what. But what if we want to get really specific? We can make a custom filter to look for exactly what we need. So let's say I only wanted to see deals that status was open, and let's say I want the contact person to have an email address. We can also do any conditions here. So if I wanted to add a condition to see deals with organizations in California or Arizona, I can add both those specifications there. And here's where we can name the filter. And if you want, you can save the columns the way you would actually organize them so that that's the way they'll show up every time you access this filter. And we can also decide if we want this filter to be private just to us or share it with the entire company to spread the love. And so these are the results of our filter, which if we wanted to, we could actually export out into a spreadsheet. Now let's talk a little bit about reporting and revenue forecasting. So you're already acquainted with the list view and the pipeline view, but now let's talk about the forecast view. This is what's going to help you predict your revenue as time goes by. Here we're looking at October, November, December. These are all the deals. Deals will only show up here if they have an expected close date. So for instance, let's say this Hilldale deal, let's say I just go and delete that expected close date, and we go back to our timeline view here, we see that there's a deal showing up. That's because this deal has no expected close date scheduled for it, so we can simply drag it anywhere we need and configure that date. A nice way to stay on top of these projections. What this green bar here is representing is what point in the sales process that deal actually is. So we know these deals are really close to closing. So if we're nearing the end of October, then maybe we can put some extra care into these and perhaps reevaluate these to close the next month so that we can finish the month out strong. Weighted values are included in your projections here as well. And if you'd like, you can configure exactly how many columns and which interval of time you're looking at. And if you happen to have created a custom date field, you actually can view the projections based off of that date as well. So you can project based off of various dates. Also remember, you can look at specific pipelines or all pipelines, as well as apply any filter you'd like. Now what this view cumulatively option is it's trying to take you over to the cumulative revenue forecast report that's available on our professional and enterprise plans. But we'll go more into that in another webinar. Right now, this isn't a bad segue into our reports feature in general. Pipedrive boasts quite a few various different types of reports for you, and you can narrow these down by which specific pipeline you'd like to look at, or if you're on a higher plan, you can look at specific teams, as well as, of course, configure the duration and the time interval that you're looking at. So let's say we're looking at how many activities got added this last quarter. We could view it by whoever created the activity or whoever owns those activities, and we could also omit or narrow down different activity types, as well as look by users over time. You can view these by weeks and months. And the same goes for the deals that you've started and the progress of those deals. This one actually is your deal progress and your conversion velocity. These will be very interesting to you because this is showing you how successful your salespeople are being in these stages of your pipeline. So for instance, over here, we see that I have about a 29% close rate. And most of those lost deals come from the very first stage of my pipeline, which is pretty normal, but I am losing a little more deals in the very last stage of my pipeline than I really should, at least certainly more than the other two. So maybe it's a good idea to reevaluate my the way I actually go about things on that stage. Whereas Henry has an unrealistic amount of success. In addition to your regular old reporting, you can also set goals on these reports. You can set goals for activity types, you can set goals for the value of deals won, or the number of deals won, or the number of deals that are passing through stages, etc. Once you've configured these goals, you can monitor them not only in your reports, but also inside of the dashboards. Just keep in mind to have the actual correct pipeline and the correct user and time interval that you would set that goal for when you're looking at the report if you actually want it to show up. And why not take a quick peek into the new insights that are coming up for Pipedrive? This is going to replace our reporting functionality eventually, but we're still kind of in the baby beta stages, so bear with us here. What's real neat about these reports is you can get far more customized with them. You can now share your reports and your dashboards with anybody with a public link, as well as create really specific dashboards. Now let's talk a little bit about adding users to Pipedrive and the data visibility that those users would have, as well as some permissions. So let's say we want to add another user to Pipedrive. We just go to our settings, manage users, and add user. pretty much as simple as that. She'll get an invitation email, and that will allow her to log in. But let's say I want to control the permissions that she has. It's here that I go into my permission sets. I can decide to either make her an admin user or a regular user. And it's here that I can also control what permission sets those regular users have. So let's say I don't want them to be able to merge deals or to be able to delete deals, etc. This is not to be confused with visibility, and that's like if you want the person you've invited to be able to see the actual deals and the actual contacts, the actual data inside a Pipedrive, as opposed to what functions they can perform. Really, when it comes to the Essentials plan, you only have one default visibility group. And it's here you can control all deals, people, organizations, and if you happen to be using the products feature, you can configure that here too. Another neat little tip is if I happen to tick this owner and followers here, you'll get this prompt if you want to actually change the visibility of all existing deals to that visibility setting. It saves you the work from having to do a bulk update in the list view. But once you've added a user, you may want to have them go take a look at their email sync and contact and calendar sync settings depending on what features you're actually using. Highly recommended to get calendar sync going, as this will sync activities between Pipedrive and events that are scheduled on your calendar to Pipedrive, and this also updates your available schedule in the scheduling tool so that customers are getting a more accurate representation of what your schedule is. So for instance, if you have an event pop up on your calendar or you schedule an activity in Pipedrive, that takes away your availability in your schedule so the customer always has your latest schedule when they're looking at it. Also, let's give a quick shout out to web forms. You can create your own custom web forms with your own colors and schemes and custom list of questions. You can host this on your website or email it directly to a customer, they fill it out, and it automatically creates a deal inside of your Pipedrive account. But the last thing I'd like to mention is our marketplace. Just head on over to Apps and Integrations, and you'll be taken to a wide catalog of various apps and integrations to improve your sales process. And some of these features even benefit from app extensions and functionality that are built into Pipedrive itself. And last but not least, of course, we have some mobile apps for you, both on Android and on iOS. This is very useful for salespeople that work on the go. They want to take their notes on the go, they want to be able to retrieve their full customer's history wherever they are. And technically, we also have this neat little mobile nearby feature so you can see all contacts and open deals that are in your immediate vicinity.